I mean, there might be a point when my persistent defense of Israel's right to defend itself is altered by if I believe that the response is just being totally disproportionate. And the fascinating question for me with this pause we're having right now is what happens next. If, as some reports are suggesting, Israel is going to start attacking the south and doing to the south what it did to the north, there's going to be no Gaza left. Where do these people go after this war? It can't be occupied by Israel. Otherwise, that really is a form of the kind of genocide that the Palestinians have been talking about. I don't think so far Israel's committed an act of genocide. If they wanted to do that, they'd have blown the whole place up. They've got the power to do it. But I do think that world opinion will be dictated by how they spend the next few weeks and months. And if they do start to steamroll in the south, I think you'll see a lot of anger fermenting amongst its own allies, including America.
Hello guys, welcome to the show. I hope everyone is doing just fine. So let's begin the show today with an interview that was done by Piers Morgan, and he was asked about his reason for talking to controversial figures like Andrew Tate and Dr. Jordan Peterson, and his whole reason for focusing alone on the Israel-Hamas issue, and if he was using this conflict to his benefit. And I think these are all very important questions that one should ask, because Piers has made this conflict his whole agenda, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that he has done episode upon episode upon episode upon episode on this crisis, and he has talked to like so many people from both sides of this conflict. He has interviewed Palestinians supporters, Hamas supporters. He has also talked to members of the Israeli government, supporters of the Israeli government, and people who are so into everything Israel. He has talked to every single one of them. So let's hear what Piers had to say about all this.
The personalities that you are using for some of these debates, where you're giving equal space to both sides, I'll mention a few of them: Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, each with huge global following, informing the debate, informing our conversations around them, rather than academics, university professors, etc.
We've had those too.
Okay, but the big drivers here have been controversial figures like Andrew Tate, charged with human trafficking and rape. Jordan Peterson, himself a very controversial figure. Why use those figures? Why was it important to hear from Andrew Tate on Israel?
Well, Andrew Tate, I just think is for the same reason the BBC wanted to interview him. At the moment, his trial hasn't happened. It may never happen. We don't know yet. He's in the wheels of Romanian justice. He's emphatically denied all the charges against him, and he. Whether we like Andrew Tate or not, a part of his shtick, I think, resonates in a positive way for young men. Part of it really offends me on behalf of women. I think he has a misogynist streak, which is undeniable. But he also has extremely opinionated views about things like the war. In fact, the exchange I had with him about the war was one of the most fascinating, I think, of the entire...
It was much more nuanced, wasn't it?
Much more nuanced, and it was a really good debate. The guy's a smart guy, and he debates, in a very passionate way. I think that I would say that I would contrast that, for example, with people like this Palestinian doctor who had been born in one of the refugee camps in Gaza. His parents had been displaced there in 1948. So he'd been living this his whole life. I think 28 members of his family had been killed since the start of the airstrikes on October the 7th, 8th. and yet he came with a message of peace. And he'd lost, his own kids. He's 3 children were blown up years ago in one of the earlier outbreaks of war here from an Israeli tank. So he's the last person you would expect. It was incredibly moving, and he was in tears in that interview. So
Yeah, I have to say, to be honest with you guys, actually, Piers has done a fantastic job in platforming the supporters or members of the both sides of the conflict, right? Yeah. He has talked to Palestinians, he has talked to Israelis, and so on and so forth. So he has been great in doing that. And I think that if other major platforms like maybe the BBC, the CNN, also devote same level of attention on this crisis and try to create a balanced argument about this crisis, I think we might see it come to an end. We might not just see a ceasefire in Gaza, but we might see people actually start discussing about the way forward for the Palestinians. Because, like I have said it before, right, leaving Palestine or leaving Palestinians in the situation that they are right now is not helping anyone. It won't help anyone. It will only create more chaos and confusion days ahead. It might not be now. It might not be in a month's time. It might not be in a year time. But believe me, it's just a boiling pot. It will surely explode. So the international community must come up with a roadmap for the people in Palestine. They cannot continue be living in the same situations that they have been living. This is not a workable solution, not for Israel, not for Palestine, not for the global community as a whole. Everyone has got to look themselves in the eye and ask if they have done all what they could do to resolve this issue. And I understand that many people will come up to say Palestinians don't want peace, that Israel has tried its best, that Israel wanted peace from the very beginning, that all what Israel has done is to ensure peace in the Middle East. But the Palestinians or Hamas is the problem. I understand people will make that argument, and people have been making that argument. But do you honestly believe that the problem lies solely on Hamas? Do you honestly believe that all the peace deal that fell apart could be laid solely on the feet of the Palestinian? Do you really believe that? Are you really sure that Israelis hardliners, Israelis fundamentalists aren't responsible for what went wrong, didn't do something to sabotage the deal? Because we all have seen videos of Benjamin Netanyahu boasting about how he sabotaged the deal. I think was it the Oslo Accord, if I'm not mistaken, how he sabotaged that one, and how Americans are easily manipulated. So do you think that it was just the Palestinians who do not wanted peace? And let me give you this scenario before I go. Let's assume for a second that it was the Palestinian Authority who walked away from a peace deal. Let's argue on that. But don't you think that the reason they might have walked away from a peace deal was because it was so unfavorable to them that they had no choice but to walk away? Have you ever considered that fact? Have you ever considered the fact that what they might have given them, what Israel might have been saying was the best peace deal, might have just been something that no one, even you yourself watching this video, would accept it? Have you ever considered that fact? For example, a neighbor came into your house and they occupied your house. And because he was a way more stronger person who could overpower you without any single stress. So you are left begging him for peace in your own house. And the neighbor said, well, I want peace thee. I want a peace thee. I want us to believe in peace. So let's negotiate, let's discuss, let's come up with a peace deal that is beneficiary to the both of us. And you said, okay, no problem. Let's talk about it. And the neighbor said, I'm going to take away your sitting room. I'm going to take away one bedroom for myself. I'm going to take away your children. And I will let you have the remaining bedroom on the other side. Would you agree that? Would you consider that to be a peace deal? But that is what the neighbor would tell people out there, that I wanted a peace deal. I was ready to negotiate with this guy. I came open-heartedly to negotiate with him, but he said no. What could I have done? What could I have done? That is what that neighbor would say. Well, the neighbor will not go into the details of the peace deal. The neighbor will not tell every single person how unfavorable that peace deal was, and how, if the situation were reversed, he himself will not accept that same peace deal. He won't say that. So before people go in saying that Palestinians have been the one not wanting to have a peace deal, so to you guys out there, please leave your thought below on what Piers Morgan talked in this interview. And also, do not forget to like this video, follow this channel, because that really helps us, and we shall forever be grateful to you. So thank you very much for doing just that. And like always, see you in the next one.